All right, we're live.
Good evening, America. Welcome back to another great episode of Power to Thrive. I'm Dale, and I'm here with my buddy, best-selling author Mr. Cliff Blodgett. And today we have a great episode for you. But before we get to it, of course, hit the subscribe button. Today's topic is dismantling Department of Education. And that's a huge topic, and a lot of people are upset about it. What do you say to it, Cliff?
When I did a scan of the top news today, that's what came up as absolutely number one in the news is Trump's plan to scrap the Department of Education. I think people's viewpoint on the Department of Education is determined by what they want to see happen in education and their experience going through the public schools if they did. I'm very opinionated about my experience going through the public schools because I went through a relatively affluent area. You would have thought that these schools would be top notch. My experience was totally different though. I literally hated these schools. The elementary school wasn't as bad. It was probably the least bad of all of them, but the elementary school, it still sucked. I recognized that as a kid in elementary school. And then I went to junior high, it totally sucked. I had one or two good teachers the whole time through high school. It sucked to the point where I brought books that I checked out of the public library, stacks of books to school. I was really into learning, so I wasn't some kid that inherently hated school. I would be learning stuff I wanted to know. They never paid attention to what I was reading. I was reading engineering books and actual history books, like real history, not the fake history they taught you in high school. The stuff that they were teaching in the public schools was infantile. Some of it was just flat out wrong. So I really felt badly about my experience going through public schools. And when I hear that they're going to dismantle the Department of Education, my gut reaction before I think about it is, oh, it's about time. Yeah, let them just rip the sucker because I really had such a bad experience. We need to have an objective study of the Department of Education and what it's doing and what it's not doing. What was your experience like in the public schools? How do you feel about it?
About the same. For me, actually, it wasn't too bad. As far as I remember coming up through elementary school, for me, wasn't bad. High school is a whole different animal. You get caught up with people, some of your buddies you want to hang around with, and next thing you know, you're doing stuff you're not even supposed to be doing, and skipping classes and all this different type of stuff. Yeah. And then as you get older,
how much of that was because of failing to even engage kids?
A lot.
Did they engage you?
No, well, back then it's way different than where it is now.
If it's not interesting and they're not really engaging you, then you don't want to pay attention.
You don't want to pay attention, exactly.
Because I noticed that when I was in the private school for a year, the school was engaging and it wasn't perfect either, but it was light years ahead of the public school. I would say in the private school, 80+% of those kids were engaged and they were down with the program. In the public school, it was like a glorified daycare basically in the public junior high. It was a night and day difference switching from the private junior high in the 7th grade to the public junior high in the 8th grade. There was no focus there, no back and forth. They weren't resonating with the kids and they weren't communicating. And so they were just going through the motions, the teachers were, as if the school was engaging, but it wasn't. Half the kids are sleeping, but kids, they don't know anything else. So if I went back there now, I would have been in the principal's office and at the school board, and I would have been saying, my parents are paying for this. We're paying taxes for this. What the hell is going on here? This school sucks. Why am I in a school that sucks? But as a kid, I didn't know you could do that. I had no idea. So the kids that are involved in some school that sucks, they don't know it sucks. You only realize how bad it sucks when you look back at it later. Then you realize, oh my God, these people really did a number on me. I didn't get my money's worth. It sucked. And I should have went and screamed bloody murder, but you don't know that you can when you're a kid. It's not even on your radar. You're just trying to pass the time.
With that being said, when you bring up the word dismantle, what exactly does that mean?
Oh, we got to do another episode on that because I'm going to have to do a full AI investigation so that we can know what all does the Department of Education even do. To my knowledge right now, the Department of Education doesn't have a single school that they run. What the hell does the Department of Education do?
I'm hearing that Abbott is trying to pass a bill for family to send their kids to private school. And they have a funding of X amount of dollars, and it's your choice whether you want to take it or not. but it's a big debate about it.
My gut feeling would be that we should have a decent public education system and that we shouldn't sabotage the public education system by taking money out of the public education system and spending it on private schools. What it does is it's privatizing the public education. So we got this move to privatize everything. The government removes funding from the U.S. Post Office. Then they complain about how bad it sucks. And then you have legislators that say, it sucks so bad, we need to privatize the mail system. There's some good reasons why we should not privatize the mail system. One example is we privatized the healthcare system. Look what happened with that. Healthcare companies financially raped everybody. And now we have the worst healthcare system of any first world country on the planet. So this idea of privatizing stuff being a good thing, I don't agree with that. As far as money and taking it away from public schools and putting it into private schools, I don't think that's the answer. I think that we should look at public education with open eyes and say, okay, why does it suck so badly? And fix the problem instead of privatizing it. Privatizing it, that is not the answer. Everywhere they do it, that's failed. Abject failure. Look no further than the healthcare system to see what happens when you privatize a major function of society. My wife, her experience with public schools was overwhelmingly positive. She really relishes her time going through the public schools and has many stories to tell about her experience, about how great it was in public schools. And she went through public schools in Atlanta, Texas, which is a small town right outside Texarkana, Texas. She loved her time in public school. So I said, okay, the good experience you had in public school, do you attribute that to the state? Or do you attribute it to the Federal Department of Education? She said that the Federal Department of Education wasn't even on her radar going through school, that she completely attributes it to Texas Department of Education and locally and specifically to her school and her teachers. She said that the teachers were actively involved and they were all members of the community, and that they knew the teachers before and after going through school. She had a very positive experience in a small town community. I wish I would have had something like that, but my experience was completely different. So I think we should look into this a lot more as far as what the Department of Education actually does, and has it been a failure in all regards. On the face, I could name dozens of things that I think that the Department of Education has completely failed at. It seems like an administrative layer of bureaucracy sucking the financial life out of the schools, because you look at the amount of money being spent federally, and then you think that all that money could go directly to schools instead of funding levels of bureaucratic mess. I think that needs to be looked at.
Cliff, how many qualified teachers do they actually have versus teachers that's not even qualified to teach, but they teach it?
That's a thing. They put the No Child Left Behind legislation in at one point, and the standardized testing. The thing that they run on is making kids pass these standardized tests. That's one of the reasons why the schools suck so badly. Let me tell you a story about the private schools that one of my daughters went to. She went to this private school that was extremely expensive, but I also feel it was extremely good. And in a state that mandated these tests, this school totally ignored the tests. They just went for the best education possible. These kids at the end of their high school would take the standardized tests because they were required to by law. And they would ace the standardized tests. They'd come out way ahead of any of the kids from the public schools. And the kids in the public schools spent their entire time focusing and studying for the standardized tests. I think that a lot of the public schools are running basically what I would consider housing for kids so that parents can go and work. It's glorified daycare. It's not education. It doesn't even come close to being education. See, the thing about it is the way that schools are set up, hands-on, where you have classrooms and teachers. It's not a federal thing. It's provided on a local level. I think it has to be managed on a local level. I think that anytime you have the federal government involved in trying to manage the way the whole school system is run, it takes the authority away from the local level, and then the people at the local level, they go on autopilot and go to sleep, where they're just not paying attention. Each local level is different. Each state goes through different things. How can schools being administered on a national level be responsive to the demands of different locales? I don't think they can. What value does the Department of Education add? everything that I've said about my experience, that's not definitive. That was just my experience and my opinion based on what I went through. And so this is just a lot of stuff off the top of our heads. What do you think of the Department of Education, of why it should be dismantled or why it should not? Let us know, and then we'll talk later.
America, go to the comments. If you want to join us, hit the button, hit the subscribe button. Y'all have a good night. We enjoyed you. See you later.